For the first session of day 4, we'll hear two powerful voices that will amplify the role of youth advocacy in the rare disease realm. First, Yamina Hsaini joins us from Paris, France. She is a 26-year-old patient advocate and content creator who has been living with rare chronic diseases since she was 14 years old. After years of misdiagnosis, Yamina began sharing her story on social media in 2016 to raise awareness and make rare diseases more visible. Yamina is joined by Ida Mirković Knaus. Ida is the expert associate and secretary of Rare Diseases Croatia. She is also vice president of the Croatian Neurofibromatosis Association. She has lived experience in that realm because her older brother lives with that rare disease. Ida's work provides stronger psychosocial support, inclusive health care, and evidence-based policy development for people living with rare diseases and their families. Yamina and Ida, thank you both so much for joining us today. I want to start with you, Yamina, because your story is intriguing on so many levels, but for the first 14 years of your life, you did not uh, have any of these experiences. You did not know that you carried these chronic diseases. So please take us on a journey of your life and your experience through the presentation that you have prepared for us.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to everyone who is attending today. So I will share. So today I will show about my story living with a rare disease, and I will also explain how my online advocacy work started and how it impacted my family. I will also show you a video that had a huge impact online and share with journalists some case tips. So I was born in perfect health, but everything changed when I turned 14 because I started to have digestive symptoms, especially chronic vomiting. So basically, it felt like my stomach just couldn't keep anything anymore. And it led me to see many doctors, but unfortunately, all they did was just to give me a medication that didn't work at all. So they didn't even try to understand and just said it could just be stress or that everything was just in my head. And this led me to experience years of misdiagnosis to the point where I was sent to psychiatric care. And of course, it was a difficult time for me because I received completely inappropriate care and I was mistreated and felt misunderstood by everyone. But when I was 16, I finally got answers because I had a medical test that had never been done before. So it's called a gastric emptying study, and it's a nuclear medicine test. Um, so it measures how long the stomach takes to empty. And my results showed the cause of my digestive symptoms because I was diagnosed with severe gastroparesis. So what is gastroparesis? It's a condition where the stomach is partially paralyzed and doesn't move food normally. So food stays here too long, and which can cause symptoms like chronic vomiting. But however, even after this diagnosis, doctors kept saying it was just all in my head because they couldn't explain the cause of my gastroparesis. And because this condition is rare and not well known, so I continued to receive inappropriate care, and even though I now had a medical proof that my symptoms were real, and I couldn't find any doctors who truly understood my condition. because most of them had never heard of gastroparesis or didn't know how to treat it properly. So now I will talk about how all of this affected me, the consequences it had on my life. So I became so sick that I had to leave school, and I spent almost all of my teenage years in hospitals and fighting to survive. I also got isolated at an age when people my age were building a social life. So it also started to affect my mental health because I went through a very dark emotional period and I suffered from depression. So I wasn't only suffering physically anymore, but also emotionally. But then everything changed when I turned 19 because for the first half of my life, I received appropriate care for my gastroparesis, and I met a doctor who knew how to treat this condition. So that way, I now have two devices that help me to stabilize my condition. So the first is a nasojejunal feeding tube. So it goes from my nose to my intestines, and it allowing me to receive nutrition directly while bypassing my stomach. And so it avoid me to have symptoms. And the second one is a gastric pacemaker. So it's a small battery placed under my skin and it's connected to my stomach. So this one helped me to help me to stop the chronic vomiting. So it really became a life changer. But now we will see that rare diseases don't only impact the patient, they also deeply affect the whole family. For example, I live with my parents, my brother, and my sister, and my daily condition affected our family routines and the way we live together. My parents had already experienced the loss of my sister. She passed away when I was still a child. So facing another serious illness in the family was extremely painful for them. And it's still sometimes hard for my family to fully understand what I'm going through. Because sometimes they try to act as if everything is just normal, but there is still a lot of misunderstanding. And my disease also created emotional challenges, worry and confusion for my family. Because, for example, when everyone eats together, I often can't join meals because my gastroparesis need a completely different diet, different routines, and sometimes symptoms like fatigue prevents me to participate in family activities. Now, how my advocacy journey started on social media. So it was during 2 years of medical misdiagnosis and isolation that I really needed to be understood. And so that's why I turned to social media. But at first, it was just a way to express myself. Um, and then it became like a therapy for me and a space where I finally could be understood without judgment. And in a mini way, it was like getting justice for all of the pain I've been going through. So people online started to recognize themselves in my story, and many reached out to tell me how my post helped them to feel less alone. And so through my platforms, I managed to raise much more awareness for gastroparesis in France, and it helped many people to get diagnosis on time and avoid years of suffering like I did. So many people online also wanted to help me. For example, they suggested doctors and medical exams I had never heard of, and that led me to discover that I was living with other chronic and rare conditions, which explained some of my other symptoms like fatigue, migraine, pain, etc. So, like you can see, social media didn't just give me a voice. It helped many people, but it also helped me find a better care and a deeper understanding of my own body. And that's how I realized that my story has an impact. Then I turned my pain into a purpose, And my advocacy journey truly began by sharing my daily life as Yamina's life on social media. And here are some recognition and opportunity I got for my advocacy work on social media. So, for example, I received the 2025 Eurodis Black Peers Social Media Award. And it was an incredibly meaningful moment because it highlighted the importance of raising the voices of people living with rare diseases. I was also invited to speak in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club for a webinar. It was organized by Science, AAAS, and Ibsen Foundation. So it gave me the opportunity to share my experience as a young advocate in an international level. And my story also been featured on global platforms, including a British magazine dedicated to raise awareness about rare diseases. It's called Rare Revolution magazine, and I got featured in the 2025 autumn edition as the Rare Aspiration. So all of these opportunities are the proof that sharing a personal story can truly create change, because I started with nothing more than my phone, nothing professional, and even like that, it led me to create opportunities that's connected with global communities. Now, I would like to share with you an excerpt of a video that shows you an example of the kind of content I create online to raise awareness. But I made this video in 2022, so it's not completely up to date anymore, but it had a huge impact online because it summarized everything I was going through at that time. And it helped many people better understand my complex situation. The video is in French, but there is English subtitle. So I will show it on YouTube. Just...
Sans souffrir. J'avais toujours d'autres symptômes, de la fatigue chronique, des migraines persistantes, etc., qui font que j'ai commencé à me questionner. Alors je me suis dit, pourquoi pas trouver la cause de ma gastroparésie qui a toujours été diagnostiquée comme étant idiopathique. Peut-être que la solution est là, car pour moi c'était évident, il y avait forcément quelque chose qui avait déclenché ça. J'ai donc consulté plusieurs spécialistes et là il y a un docteur qui m'a fait une prise de sang que je n'avais jamais eue de ma vie et ça a montré beaucoup de choses positives. Alors déjà, il se trouve que j'ai apparemment la maladie de Lyme au stade chronique et surtout une bartonellose au stade chronique. Ces résultats étaient très importants dans ma prise de sang. Donc là, j'avais 21 ans, on était en 2021 et c'était le choc pour moi d'à nouveau faire face à de nouveaux diagnostics. Pour les médecins, c'était évident que si cette bactérie est traitée, alors ça irait mieux au niveau de ma gastroparésie. Sauf que les médecins Lyme en France ne voulaient pas prendre le risque de me traiter car ils ont dit qu'avec mon système digestif, ça pouvait être beaucoup trop grave de me mettre sous antibiothérapie. J'ai donc trouvé un endroit aux États-Unis où on pourrait me traiter par rapport à ça. Sauf que les soins sont extrêmement chers, mais grâce à vous, à votre solidarité, je vais enfin pouvoir aller me faire soigner aux États-Unis. Par contre, je suis également atteinte d'autres pathologies. En 2021, j'ai été diagnostiquée d'endométriose et ça expliquait beaucoup de mes symptômes. Et ça, pareil, c'était une longue errance médicale. J'ai également une maladie aux yeux qui s'appelle le kératocone. Mon œil gauche étant beaucoup plus atteint, j'y ai subi 4 opérations. La première en 2016 qui était un cross-linking et les 3 autres étaient des placements d'anneaux intracornéens en 2018 et 2019. Du coup, oui, j'ai un anneau dans l'œil. Conclusion, de mes 14 ans à mes 20 ans, toutes ces années de ma vie ont été volées. Tout ça à cause d'une erreur de la part des soignants, car ils ne connaissaient pas la gastroparésie. Tout ça m'a énormément détruite. Je me retrouvais à être complètement renfermée sur moi-même, car forcément, si je pouvais pas faire confiance à des soignants qui étaient censés m'aider, alors je pouvais faire confiance à personne. Mais il y a un seul truc qui a fait que je réussis à me reconstruire, c'est les réseaux sociaux. J'avais ouvert une chaîne YouTube et là, j'ai commencé à vider mon cœur. Ça m'a fait énormément de bien de m'exprimer. C'est comme si je vidais un poids que j'avais en moi. Le fait de m'exprimer sur YouTube, de faire des vidéos TikTok avec ce qui m'est arrivé et de m'exprimer un peu partout sur les réseaux, ça a vraiment été thérapeutique pour moi. Et ça m'a permis de tourner un peu la page avec mon passé, d'aller de l'avant. Grâce à vous, je reprends confiance en moi. Merci infiniment à tous ceux qui me soutiennent dans ce combat.
Thank you for watching. The full video is in my YouTube channel. And now I would like to give some key tips for journalists based on my own experiences. So first, the first tip I would give is that it's important to focus on authenticity because people connect with what feels real and relatable. So when you show the real daily life of a patient, not only the dramatic moments, you help people truly understand what we go through. Because behind every diagnosis, there is a person. And the more people understand someone, the more they can connect to their story and the less they judge. The second tips that I would give to journalists is to show that rare disease stories are not only about symptoms, because they also are about the fight to be heard, the years of misdiagnosis, the emotional struggles, the difficulties of accessing proper care. So these elements are essential, especially in countries where healthcare access is limited. The third tip I would give is you have the power, because you have the power as journalists to make the invisible visible, is to show what we don't see with rare diseases. As journalists, you have the power to highlight what people cannot see, like invisible pain, hidden obstacles, daily challenges. And by doing this, you give visibility to people who are often forgotten. So your reporting can truly change life. And the last tip I would give you is to help transform pain into purpose. Because when you give patients a space to tell their story, you help turn suffering into something meaningful. You give them dignity, you give them visibility, and you help others feel less alone. So these are not just medical stories, they are human stories. And you can continue to exploring a way to encourage audience by highlighting respectful storytelling, because every narrative can shape how the world sees rare diseases. Thank you so much for your attention. It was a truly honor to share my story with you today.
Yamina, thank you so much for an
Thank
incredibly
you.
powerful presentation. I want to ask one question before we go to Ida, and that would be, how did you prepare your family for the fact that you were going to share all of these details, all of your struggles, all of the challenges to the public? Was this a conversation that you had to have?
In fact, I didn't inform them that I will share about my story online. At first, I wasn't showing. I was doing this anonymously, so I wasn't giving my name or everything. It was just like a personal diary online. But then when I saw that it helped many people, I started to show myself, my real name. But then my family discovered after on social media. I never told them that I was doing sharing my life until they find them on their own. Um, they was proud of what I was doing, excepting my mom, because she finds it too personal to show online. So she didn't she didn't wanted to me to show off of these personal things. But I was explaining to her how much it helped me. And even today, it's still not very easy for her to understand why I'm sharing all of these things online. Um, but I just keep saying it helped me and it helped many people. So
Amazing impact. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you,
Let's now
Ross.
go to Ida and your story.
Thank you. So, my presentation is mostly focused on youth leadership and youth advocacy. So, I want to start by maybe introducing myself. I'm a sibling to person affected by rare disease, as was mentioned. So my brother suffers from neurofibromatosis type 1. And that was kind of my way into rare disease advocacy. He is 8 years older than me. So my advocacy journey started at quite young age before I was even aware of it. Because
Can I ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can I
yeah.
ask you to briefly just explain to the journalists a little bit about neurofibromatosis?
Yeah. I was just about to. So, what is specific to NF1 is that it has really visible physical symptoms that includes fibromas on your skin. So, that fibromas are like benign tumors that develop next to your nerves. So, the condition is progressive. You're born with it, and through the years, the number of fibromas is just getting bigger and bigger. So in some cases, there are also like big fibromas, which take like a big tumor that can be on a part of your body. So my brother condition was visible since he was a little kid. It started with some hyperpigmentation, which developed into fibromas or the benign tumors. So when I was growing up, I had no idea what that actually was. I was kind of jealous that I didn't have those because he was my older brother and I wanted to do everything the same as he did. So I was kind of oblivious about the complexity of that condition. But I started to advocate for some changes in that field because I started to noticing that people are treating him differently. People were staring at him, and I would just kind of go and kind of lecture, let's say, people on the streets, like, you should not do that because he has this and this condition. Because my idea was if they knew, they wouldn't do that. And that is how my advocacy kind of started. And then 20 years later, I'm 29, it became my profession. So I'm a social worker, and now I currently work with Rare Diseases Croatia. That is our national alliance for rare diseases in Croatia. And I'm also the vice president of the Croatian Neurofibromatosis Association. I'm currently also engaged in different youth advocacy groups focused on rare diseases. So I will now share, if it's okay, the presentation, or if there are any questions, anything I should also mention.
We should, we'll do that at the end of your presentation.
Okay. So, okay, I'll just. So is everything okay? Because I have two screens, so I'm not sure if you're seeing everything properly.
We can see it.
Okay, great, thank you. So this presentation was kind of developed from my personal journey, my role in Rare Diseases Croatia, and between the youth advocacy group. We were discussing this topic, so it is a mixture of everything. So what I want to start with is kind of emphasize the media's unique power when it comes to rare disease community and how we can develop the partnership between us. And then what we really agreed on is that ethical reporting on rare diseases and what is our perspective on that, and some of the inputs we would like to, as youth advocates, give to journalists. And at the end, to kind of introduce like who are we actually as youth rare disease advocates. So about the media's unique power, I just want to apologize if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, because maybe media journalism, journalists means different contexts, but I'm also all using them in the same like bucket when I'm talking to you. So I'm apologizing if the terminology is wrong, but I'm addressing you here present today with all those terms. So what our rare disease communities and patient groups are mostly focused is raising awareness and advocacy. So when it comes to raising awareness, media has a really big impact in helping us increase the understanding of rare diseases and kind of shed a light on them. but also it shapes a public perception and the narrative that public has about rare diseases. And I'll come back to that later, but it's really important to keep in mind that it's not only sharing a personal story, but also shaping how people are perceiving rare disease community through that stories. And the next thing is what we are focusing on is advocacy. And media really help us to drive pressure that leads to change. And from our experiences in rare diseases Croatia, it happened a bit too many times, unfortunately, that we had to go through media to put pressure on our government to make some kind of a medicine or treatment available in Croatia. And I'm saying it's unfortunately not because I want to, not because I think media is not important, but because I think fighting for your kind of basic needs and rights shouldn't be a big media campaign. But unfortunately, it is. And here I just want to mention this was our latest example of the case with achondroplasia. That is a genetic condition that affects the bone growth, and it is connected to different types of dwarfism. And there is a medicine for a specific age group affected by this disease, which is available in some countries in Europe, but was not available, I'm sorry, in Croatia. So we went through all like basic paths of how do you get a medicine to come to your country, which didn't work. And then the parents actually did a really good campaign with the media and pressured the government. And now the medicine is finally available to some of our patients. So this is where media really help us in the advocacy path as well. And also on the personal side, it is really sometimes empowering to share your voice. And the media and the journalists really empower us as a patient advocates when we are able to share what are we going through. So now on ethical reporting on rare diseases, we call these rules. We discussed if rule is appropriate, but as a patient advocate, my job is to fight for the best we can. So I will call them rules, but those are just some tips on what we would really appreciate when we are talking to journalists. So the first one is that the patient should be in control of how the story will be shared. And the first thing is to inform the person you're interviewing on what is going on and to introduce yourself. And it sounds so basic, but it happened to me several times that I was giving an interview that I was not even aware. I thought that I was just on a phone call discussing something that will happen in the future, some kind of interview, and talked about different topics that we should maybe discuss or should not discuss. And then they just said, okay, thank you, and bye. And I realized like, oh, this was the interview. And then like the next day, the papers were like citing me on some things that I had no idea I was actually talking about. So this is an important step not to skip. And always to offer a stop clause because those are sensitive topics. So it is normal that a person can maybe feel overwhelmed. So just give the possibility to pause, to skip, to end anytime, and to kind of ask in advance how much details they are comfortable sharing. Because if you maybe go into some topic that is too intimate for them, they kind of feel like they have to share it then, but maybe they wouldn't if you have discussed this previously. The second rule is to kind of avoid or be aware of the emotional venting trap. We call it that way. So interviews can sometimes trigger or lead to oversharing because I think it's a really visible in rare diseases, the lack of the possibility to share your story and share the complexity of it. And then once you get a chance and you get the interview, you start to kind of vent out also. Like you overshare something that is maybe not related to the interview and maybe it's really intimate to you, but you're not actually aware that you're starting to kind of go from interviewing to oversharing your story because you just wanted to get it out there. So kind of protect your the person you're interviewing from later regretting to what they have said, and kind of be aware that maybe they are oversharing, and ask them afterwards, like, are you okay with me publishing this and this? And also to kind of provide a post-interview like safety net. It is also connected with that fact that this can be triggering or going into some sensitive topics. So just to remind them that there are some resources or NGOs or something they can reach out afterwards. And also it is really important for you also to take care and be aware that when you're talking to rare disease patients or rare disease advocates, those can be really hard topics that can be overwhelming, and it is okay to feel overwhelmed, but just be aware of that. You should kind of take care of yourself through that as well. And mandatory authorization. That is also connected to all of this, like let the patient review that quote or some details they gave you, because we just want to own the story if we are already sharing our story. And also these things I'm talking about right now, they are coming from a perspective of a patient advocate. And you as a journalist will know how much of this is actually applicable to you and your field of work or your current task. So this is something like our wish list, but you are the experts on your field. So just, how, if and how this will be applicable to your work. Then avoid like those shocking headlines. We are aware that you need something that is like eye-catching, that will draw attention for someone to read the article, to open the story. But it's important to have in mind that it can also affect a person or the whole community, and it can be stigmatizing sometimes. And here I also have an example of a patient with achondroplasia, which I mentioned earlier, which he shared his life story, how he was born with achondroplasia, what are his struggles through life, some medical issues he had, and he also mentioned that at the time that he was little and there was no medicine that is available today, he had to go through something that involved breaking his bones. I mean, doctors were breaking his bones in order to them to regrow in a more in-line way, because it was causing him a lot of pain and different issues. And then out of the whole life story, the next day, the title was that the man decided to break all of his bones to be a few centimeters taller, which was not the point of the story, which was just a little detail he mentioned to kind of emphasize how hard it can be to have this condition. But then he reached to us and said that he feels like a complete like lunatic, and someone who reads that title will think like, oh, this person is not really mentally, maybe he has some mental struggles, or it can also create a picture of this community as of people affected by achondroplasia to someone who is really has low self-esteem and is willing to break his bones to grow a bit, which is not true. So kind of avoid, not to avoid, but to be aware of what message is given through that headline. Also to avoid that tragedy narrative and to not to reduce people's lives to their losses. Rare diseases do carry a lot of loss, a lot of struggles, a lot of ups and downs, but those are some of the most resilient and most like the best self-advocates I have met when I'm talking about the whole rare disease community, and I think that emphasis should also be put on that. Then the next one is do not shop for the most tragic or the most dramatic cases. And this is something that is coming from also our experience in our national organization, where journalists come to us and they are just like, hey, I want to write a story. I would like young female who has a progressive condition, and it's tragic, but it is cognitively, she is still fine to talk about it, or just give me single dad of a dying child. Yes, there are different stories, but those are people, and of course we are aware that you have a task as well, and you need to share some kind of a story, some kind of a message, but do not turn it into like shopping for groceries and I'll just pick this and this and I need that. We can discuss this. And then to protect dignity, as that is your core role. And of course, you're a journalist. You are writing a story, but just to be aware that you're not only amplifying like a personal tragedy, but you are pointing to a systematic issues through someone's personal story. So what also Yamina talked about, I can relate to so many things, even though I'm not affected, even though my brother is affected by the whole another type of a disease, and working with our national organization, we have so many different patients, but there are systematic issues that are common to all of us. So be aware that this story is also about pointing to a systematic issue as well. And then to more like happy topics, who are we as a rare disease youth advocates? So youth advocates are often people who have personal or close experience with rare diseases, which gives us really strong motivation for change. I don't know how to explain it. I think we kind of have a unique youth sparkle. We are really curious and open and really high engaged, and all youth advocates I have met have such a strong knowledge on so many topics, not just on their own disease and management on their disease, but on so many other topics, which I think makes youth also an interesting group to report on, or to just keep in mind as someone who you can report on the right stories, because the story from the youth perspective, or maybe from a parent perspective, can be a quite different one, even though it's the same family and same experience from the outside. But it is also important to remember that youth advocates are also mostly, in many cases, are also the patients. So they are balancing through multiple pressures to having their health vary from day to day, and they can also be overwhelmed, and they are, from what I've experienced, are working overtime really all the time just to speak up and get the story out, and that is the part of the high engagement, but it comes with a cost, and just be mindful of that when you are reaching out to youth advocates. And where to kind of find us. First, I have put this Rare Disease International Youth Leadership Program. This is a program I'm a part of, which has, I think it's 13 of us, just the most amazing young people who are advocating for rare diseases. We are across 6 continents, So we are really engaged in both like local and regional stories and systems, and we cover different like fields of rare diseases. So I think we are a really strong group to start with if you want to engage more specific to some topic or some region. Eurordis also has Rare Disease Day Young Ambassadors, which are becoming more and more active because we're approaching Rare Disease Day. I think it is today marks the 100 days until Rare Disease Day, which is on February 28th. So there will be a lot of youth ambassadors getting more and more engaged. Of course, social media, I think it's amazing source where you can find really amazing youth advocates there, which are doing like Yamina, so much amazing work across the whole like globe. Also, One Young World Ambassadors covers like many different youth ambassadors from many different fields, not only rare diseases. And word of mouth, I think it's better. The best way is to ask some youth advocate, just to pinpoint like, hey, I know someone from, I don't know, South Africa that may be helpful for this and this. So we're, I think, quite well connected to each other. So if you need some help or guidance with a more specific topic or more specific group, I think we got you covered. And I know that there are many more different groups and national organization. I have put only these because these are mostly familiar to me, and I'm mostly engaged in these groups, but there are so many more. So you just have to ask us all, and I promise we'll find a way to get whatever you need. Yeah. And I will now stop sharing. Oh, no, I won't. I still have like a few lines I want to go message to be. So to treat like the personal stories that you're receiving as a gift, and to treat them with really care and dignity, because those are some really hard experiences that someone is basically giving to a stranger. So kind of be careful and treat it with dignity it deserves, and to protect the person, not just the story, to be mindful that it is a person's life experience there, not only that one story that will be just one of your many stories you will be sharing through your professional life. And patient organizations are really your allies. I mean, we are really open to, as I said on the first slide, we are open to partnership in any ways. I think it's a win-win partnership, and we are quite well connected in terms of like political situation on both individual experiences, systematic issues in our country. So just feel free to reach out to any patient organization that is close to you, or maybe ask for help. But generally, patient organizations are your allies, and just feel free to approach us whenever you need. So now I'll stop sharing, and thank you for the attention.
Well, you are a very impressive leader and advocate, Ida. So I want to thank you for that. We have many questions in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to remind the journalists to please sort of summarize what you're asking our guests, because we want to get as many as possible in. So let's start with Evans from Zimbabwe.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Ida. Hello, Yamina. My name is Evans Jonah. I am a health reporter from Post on Sunday, right here in Zimbabwe. I've got a question for Ida and a question for Yamina as well. So I'll start off with Ida. You're the one who just ended your presentation just now, and thank you so much for that detailed presentation right there. My question is that many African traditional communities fear that cultural narratives become distorted when rare disease advocacy stories are shared on social media instead of formal news outlets. So, what steps can journalists take now to ensure that these stories remain authentic, culturally respective, and accurate, representing both platforms?
I would say it goes to that part of the patient owning their story and kind of really discuss about not only what is that person's story, but how do they want to be presented, depending or on their cultural like surroundings. So as I'm not so familiar with the African culture and I'm based in Europe and haven't had so much experience with that, but just like from the top of my head, that would be my idea to kind of see how that community breathes, let's say, and how the story should be addressed in a way that it's not stigmatizing or it's not sending the wrong message, depending on where it is shared, or if we are talking about sharing it globally on social media, to kind of also highlight the fact of where it culturally comes from. So to give a little context on that, because I mean, I'm aware that there are different societies. We have different values through, like, even in Europe, it is differently how you are going to talk about some disease in Croatia or in Serbia. So I would give also a bit of a context. But I think when you said where are you from, I immediately thought of Vincent, who is from Zimbabwe, who is also part of the youth leadership program with RDI. So I think maybe including him would be more beneficial to answer this question. So yes, as I said, RDI Youth Leadership Program, we cover all continents. So maybe I could share the link so you have more contacts from that are closer maybe to your community and can give you a better answer than I can.
Thank you so much.
If that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
Let's go to Asako.
My name is Asako, and I am a journalist based in Japan. So thank you so much, Yamina and Ida, for a great presentation, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. So I know that the patients face different challenges and barriers depending on their age and life stage. So this is a question for both of you. Do you think is there any missing point in rare disease reporting so far from the perspective of younger rare disease patient or an advocate?
Yamina, if you want to.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing Yamina's thoughts about the kinds of stories that you see and the kinds you would want to see.
Thank you for your questions. I think when reporting rare diseases, maybe journalists don't show all of the part of the life of the person, because sometimes people, when they see rare disease reporting, they only see the negative part, the medical things, and we need to see the human behind every negative things, and like that they more connect with people. So I think when reporting a rare disease, you need to show the life of the person globally, the positive things, and everything the person can face daily in their daily life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Liwei from Malaysia.
Hi, hi, Yamina. My name is Li Wei. I'm from Malaysia. So I'm quite curious. Before you the content on the social media or to advocate what you are having right now to the public. So maybe do you have any challenge of explaining to the public about your condition since when they saw you with a tube on your nose, maybe they were curious about your condition. And I'm not sure because in Malaysia, there's a lot of this rare disease patients. They find it very difficult, very challenged to explain to the people because when they try to explain it, they will involve a lot of this medical jargon. So how you simplified it that? Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. So yes, it was very difficult at the beginning to talk about my disease because there were a lot of curious people, and especially when it's a rare disease, it's more complicated to explain things because people don't understand what you are talking about. And that's what makes me even more to turn to social media and to spread awareness, because I realized that a lot of people don't understand all of these things, and it was very important to raise more awareness. So I hope I have answered your questions.
I think Albina has a question for Ida. Albina?
Hello. I have a question for Ida, and thank you all for this presentation. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me? Okay. So I am Albina. I am from Kosovo. I am an investigative journalist, and I have been wanting to do a story for Gaucher disease in Kosovo, which there are only 50 patients who have this condition. But because I do usually tackle sensitive stories, it has happened that the source has pulled back or has been afraid. And my concern as a new journalist is always how can I work in a way that it doesn't seem like I'm persistent or as if I'm caring more about the story than the person themselves actually, because it has happened that or what if it happens again when I'm working on a healthcare story that after the interview is done and some time passes and the source now says I'm not comfortable with the story being shown, and you want, of course, you as a journalist want to find out, and I would offer to speak off record and to see what's the issue. But what's the line? Would that cross the line with the being, showing interest for the story and for them, or being unnecessarily persistent and causing them stress? Because that's the opposite of wanting to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand, and it is not uncommon that patients do pull back after an interview. But from our experiences, it's mostly when the topics of medicines are discussed. Which happens to us is that the person goes out and tells like, hey, we do not have this medicine available, and it is available in, I don't know, Germany. And or different kind of they have the pills, and here I have to go through get through the IV every 2 weeks, and then they are scared of like, if I say that, will I lose this little I have already? So that is commonly that is a common issue that our members are facing, because they are scared if they share that somebody else got it better, and that our government or someone will pull back what little they have. And I think it's important to encourage the person to share the story, because just to remind that the health is like the basic human right. This is not, we are not talking about we are talking about dignity and basic human rights. So to kind of remind them, because they're kind of used to being in so bad like positions and so badly treated, that they think it's a luxury to have some kind of a basic standard. So that is also why they pull back. So to kind of remind them that it is not story just about them. It's about systematic issues that they are being brave enough to talk about. And I think it is also important to include patient organizations because it is also our job here, not yours as journalists, to kind of empower and prepare our patients who are willing to share their stories. And that is, I think, why that partnership I was talking about is really important, to reaching out to patient organizations, because I think that is our part of work to do and to kind of prepare. And that's something with Rare Diseases Croatia, what we are doing too, is that we talk to those people who are going to the media in advance and to kind of prepare them what they can expect, why is this important to talk about. And this kind of, I hope it answers the question. So maybe to, yes, it may seem like putting an extra pressure, but just to kind of encourage them to remember, why is this happening? Why is this story important? But also remind them that if it's too much for them, that's okay. And to reroute them to patient organization or to someone who can help them empower themselves to advocate. Because when you are affected by rare disease, you have to self-advocate. You're not given an option. You just have to fight for yourself. Unfortunately, that's the case. So that is our part of the job, to do that, to empower patients. Yeah.
Thank you. We have so many great questions, and unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I wanted to give Robert from Kenya the opportunity, if you would quickly summarize your question, because it is so important. Robert, are you there? Okay, well, he may be having some connection questions, so problems, so I will ask it. Robert, are you there? Yes, please ask your question. You're on mute. We can't hear you. No. So I will ask it for you, Robert. You can stay on camera. But he wants to know, the rare disease community is rightly described as resilient, but focusing on resilient, are journalists inadvertently sometimes suggesting that the burden is on the patients to be strong rather than the society or the systems? Let's start with you, Yamina, and then Ida.
The question?
So the question is, so often in reporting, the focus is, the community is described as resilient, but in focusing on resilience, are journalists sometimes inadvertently suggesting that the burden is on the patients to be strong? They're putting forth this image of the strength of families and patients, but does that take away from the responsibility of systems and policies to be strong as well?
So the difficulties of showing the patient and family. Sorry, can you repeat in another way?
It's sort of as if you show how strong and powerful these families and patients are, do people sometimes walk away thinking, well, they got it handled.
Okay.
They can do it. They can deal with it themselves.
Okay. I think they have to change the mind of how the family and patient thinks about the rare diseases, and show them that it's not something taboo, because most of the time patients as family don't want to show anything because for them it's vulnerable things. And that's important that journalists show that there is nothing taboo, and it's important to talk about all of these things. So I think it's to change how people see this community, and to turn how we, to turn how it is in society, because everyone has thinks the rare disease community don't have to be showed, and it's just journalists have to talk about it a lot of times, and I think the patient will start to change their mind and also the family.
That's actually a very good point, because I think
Thank you.
journalists need to remember that even though they are producing a powerful, inspiring story, those families aren't always strong. There are times when there's fear, as Sarita told us yesterday. You have your moments of fear and worry, etc. So thank you. Ida, take us home. Lead us out with your thoughts on this issue of capturing the strength and resilience of rare disease families, but how that can sometimes be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's important to stress out that we become resilient because we have to. So it wasn't like a choice, that it was like bend so you don't break. That's kind of a resilience we are talking about. So it's not that you just have no other possibilities of other than doing your best and being as resilient as you can, because the system is broken. The system is not supporting you. And if you broke down, nothing, you are depending on yourself when it comes to rare diseases. So if my parents just gave up and we didn't become a resilient family, my brother would die. So that's kind of resilience we're talking about. That is the narrative of resilience when it comes to rare diseases. We are bending not to break, which makes us resilient. But that doesn't mean we can take as much load as possible, like every load, all the load possible. It's just that we are not given an opportunity to kind of ease our way out. We have to do it. And that makes us resilient. Yeah.
That is an incredibly powerful way to end this discussion, particularly about young people in this space. You do have the power and the will and the determination to bend so that you don't break. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ida Mirković, Knaus, and Yamina Hsaini for talking with us about youth advocacy in the rare disease realm. And we will be in touch with you. You can best believe. So thank you so much.